afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our LinkedIn Live, our monthly LinkedIn Live with the lovely Gina London. Gina, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. It's great to see you, Sam, and it's great to be here with you as we're rounding into the summer months and thinking about what can we do about taking more control of what we can control in the midst of ongoing uncertainty. Can we take a holiday this year because flight prices are so expensive because of the ongoing conflict with Iran? What are you focusing on that you can control? So that's what Sam and I are here for to help you with today.
Yes, and we're going to talk about one that probably stumps a lot of people, which is, how to deal with a difficult employee. Let's start with a difficult employee, shall we? Because I know a lot of your audience might be in that position. So having difficult conversations is something that I think people struggle with. But how would you start, go about starting to deal with a difficult employee?
Well, when we talk about employees, then this is different than a colleague, and this is different than a difficult manager. So if you're speaking particularly about you're the leader, you're the direct report, and they're your employee, you should already be having a weekly touch point with them that is not only on projects. So when you think about you've got a difficult conversation that you need to have, the first thing that most people try to do, even if they're in a leadership position, is justify why they don't need to have the call or the conversation. It's going to solve itself. It's going to go away. It really wasn't that bad. Whatever it is. And of course, like anything, if you don't address it early on, it can become tacit approval or permission that this behavior is happening and that you're somehow as the manager okay with it or unaware. Both are bad. So the first thing I would say right away is rethink about how you think about difficult conversations. And my dear friend and the woman who's written the foreword for my upcoming book, which is called Amplify You, but this woman, Susan Scott, she wrote a seminal book back in the 90s called Fierce Conversations. And one of the first things that she reminds us when we talk about the idea of difficult conversations or the word confrontation is that the prefix con from the Latin root is to go with or to get with someone. So you think about, try to reframe how you're thinking about it, that you're not having this adversarial interaction, you're trying to get with someone and then getting in front of an issue with that other person. And when you reframe it that way, that can be a particular way to start you thinking it's not so bad after all, that person's going to want to be with me. And this then dives into positive psychology and adult education. Most employees want to do a good job. They're not out there trying to be difficult. So that's one, is the mindset. Always the mindset is the first part. Secondly, schedule the time to talk. Excuse me, if it's part of your regular weekly touch point, that's fine. If it's something where you need to have this conversation before your next upcoming touch point, get that on the diary, get that time blocked off. Then the next part of it is really important. And I was just working with a group of leaders, in fact, on this topic just last week. Your opening move. Your opening move is essential. And your opening move should be more than, Sam, I want to talk to you about your behavior. Because as soon as I say that, I haven't given any context, any specifics, and I've put Sam in the defensive mode or the frustration mode or the whatever shock mode it is. If you're addressing something for the first time, now let's say I've talked to Sam many times about her behavior and now we're having another call, but if this is the first time, sorry, Sam, you get to be my guinea for this conversation.
Okay.
If I say to Sam, I want to talk about your behavior, and I pause and I don't keep driving, Sam is very likely to come in. And if she doesn't come in, she's emotionally already thinking about, what am I going to respond? How do I defend? What's going on? So your opening move then, now everything is up for variety. This is not the only way, but what I encourage is to try to get as much as you can in that opening move, which means I'd like to talk about your behavior. Last Thursday, so now we're going to give an example. I observed you, or another one of your colleagues said to me, make it as specific and as close to the time you're speaking to them as possible. Mm-hmm. If you come in and say, I want to talk to you about your behavior, and then you say, 3 months ago in that all hands meeting, or 3 months ago when you were with the client with me, you've already lost the battle. Mm-hmm. Because why did you let it go that long? And what is you expecting that person's memory to be? Poor Sam is put on the instantly, I don't remember it. So much has happened from then and then. That's not how I remember it. And you've lost that issue. So again, proximity, framing the opening move with what the real issue is. Don't say behavior and then not have a specific example, because behavior is too vague. If it's tardiness, have some specific issues. If it's a gap in their performance, have a specific example. Do not let it land on just a generality, because that's very hard to evidence and substantiate. And that makes the other person feel piled on. Mm-hmm. So when you say the specific example, you might then also consider a couple of other factors. Do you, as the manager, own any of the problem? Was I not clear enough about the deadlines for this project? If you weren't, own it. Have we changed our behavior values in the last couple of weeks? Is there some wiggle room for them? If there is, own that, because you want to overcome objections and be very clear about the specific difficulty that you're addressing, so that you don't get sidetracked. Would narrow your focus in your opening move so that you're avoiding them going off on a tangent. Then the next, once you set up your opening move with as much specificity as you can, and owning a little bit of piece of it if you need to, or the organization needs to, or something, then the next part is to get the conversation ball back into their court. But you don't get it back in their court by just stating your premises and leaving it there, because you've not given them enough clarity of what you're expecting them to respond to. So if I said to Sam, I have a problem with your behavior. Back on Thursday, I heard you interrupt our director when they were speaking, and that you should be thinking, wrong. I heard you speak over the director. What are your thoughts on that? I made a mistake myself when I was setting it up, because sometimes that's exactly what we do, is we rush to the solution from our point of view.
Right.
So in my haste to give a quick example, I actually broke my own rule. So this is why it's important to think this stuff through. And even if you can, write it down, what you're going to share. Write down the next question. What are your thoughts? So I think that's really important to say. What's your thought on this? What's your point of view on this? And then stop talking and listen. So that's your opening move, ended with an open-ended question back to them to give them space to respond. Number 2 then is, if they get defensive, if they justify, if they give some rationale, the next answer isn't for you, again, to jump into your solution. Well, I think that you should the next question is, what do you think should happen next? What do you think the challenges are? What do you think I should do? What do you think you should modify? What are your thoughts on how to prevent something like this coming forward again? The best way to give effective feedback or have a difficult conversation when you're the boss and they're the employee is to awake their awareness, to elicit their own identification of a gap and their own identification of a small but significant commitment to how they will modify, which is the big difference, folks, between compliance. I need you to do this. I need you to do this. I need you to work harder. I need you to be on time. I need you to not speak over people. I need you to whatever. Compliance is sure, okay. But it's not necessarily accepting your ownership of it yourself or aware that there's really something that you can modify. You're simply complying to what your manager has mandated. And that doesn't modify, it doesn't heighten your awareness. I don't know that you're aware of it because you haven't said it yourself. You're just nodding to what I'm saying to get me out of your room or out of your Zoom room or whatever, wherever I am, to end this conversation. And it's less effective. So question, awareness, commitment. What's your commitment to this? Then timeline it. Okay. Don't let it land with, okay, that's great. I look forward to hearing from you next. And like, get it very clear. How do we mark that you've made that change? When should we meet again? I'd say probably 2 weeks, depending on what the issue is a good time frame. Maybe it's a month, but it's probably not more than that. If you wait to the next quarter to address something, it's really hard to metric the change. It gets too vague again. And when it's vague and waffly, it's not been codified and actively replicated. And they can't mark the celebration any more than you can mark the modification.
Right. Okay. So, yeah, that's really good advice. And Deirdre has said, avoiding that difficult conversation and trying to find reasons to justify avoiding it.
Absolutely. That's what we open up with. That's our knee-jerk response, because most of us don't like difficult conversations. Most of us don't like giving them. We certainly don't like receiving them.
Yeah.
Most of us are conflict avoiders, and that's just human nature, because we like to have the flow going nice and smooth. We don't want that. We want to go around the rock. We don't want to go into the rock and have to actually address it and look at it and examine it. That's no fun. But the sooner that you do it, the sooner the reality plays out, as opposed to we can make it bigger and bigger in our brains than it likely even is in the reality. So get out in front of it. Get with the person in front of the issue.
Actually, this could be used for family things as well, couldn't it? Really, for any occasion, not just.
It is.
Yeah.
Of course it is. Now the dynamic is different because you're not the boss, even if you're a parent, especially when you're the parent.
Yeah.
And they don't play by. You're not going to be getting the performance review over to a higher HR official. You probably can't escalate it.
There's a lot of what's the word? When you there's a lot of what's the word when you make a concession? Oh my gosh, I've just gone blank.
The negotiations of
negotiation, but then also maybe balancing it out and making a compromise. That's the word.
Compromise, yes.
I forgot the word. Compromise.
Well, and that, by the way, and we're very likely to forget words when we are in an emotionally charged situation. So the question then for you is, how much can you write down? I've had different people in this field say, oh, you shouldn't write it down because it looks too scripted. Your opening move, I think, absolutely can be written down. And if you say it to them, Sam, I want to talk about your behavior. I've written down some specifics because I want to land the words properly, because I am looking for a positive outcome here.
Yes.
I believe in you. People often will say too, should we do the compliment sandwich with someone? And that's where situational leadership is important. That means, Sam, you've been working really hard at this. I know you've got this project across the desk before the deadline. You've been congenial to your colleagues, have been saying great things. And I want to address what I saw last Thursday in that meeting when you spoke over our director, which Sam would never do, but this is my example. And so that way, that's the little bit of that compliment sandwich. You're padding it with positivity at the front.
Yes.
And I think sometimes I've heard experts say, oh no, you just got to lead with the real issue first. But it depends on the relationship that you have with that person, or how the communication style is of that other person. And I think that's, again, important awareness. That's the preparation part is key. Writing some things down is not a problem. If you are prone to forget words, or you might think you might not land it properly, or you might forget the example or the date, or you might forget to stop after you're done setting up the issue to give them that chance to speak, and don't rush into the solution.
Yeah, and we actually have a comment from Greg. And hi, Deirdre. We saw your lovely comment there. Thank
Yes,
you.
hi, Deirdre. Hi, Greg. Great to see you. And thanks for pre-ordering the book. I'm so grateful.
Yay, great framework. Is there a parallel for dealing with a difficult boss or manager?
Right. Now, this is much trickier because now you're not in a place of authority. And yet, the example that I've gotten from more than one client is this. The person who's thinking about the situation with the boss is because the boss has canceled or postponed 3 of their regularly scheduled weekly check-ins in a row. Now, Gina is wondering, now my Sam is my boss, does Sam have something more important than me going on? Does Sam have a beef with me that I don't know about? Am I making a misstep somewhere that Sam is relegating me out to the equivalent of Siberia in my organization? I don't matter anymore. What's going on? And the question there is, what situationally can you do? And I would encourage you to ask the question. Now, you also have to understand, is Sam abrupt to everyone? Is Sam always too busy for anybody? Does Sam systematically miss the weekly check-ins with my other colleagues as well? Is that her style of working? We hope it isn't. But if it is, then that's a different level of information that you need to put into your decision whether or not to confront. And by confront, I'm not meaning in an aggressive way, of course. Let's say you genuinely are concerned and there's no other examples of it. It's an aberration in this person's behavior. And this, by the way, is not the same as there was an actual HR infraction. I mean, sometimes we think about, is it a conversation we're going to have with that person, or is it an escalation to someone else in management higher up than my boss? So I want you to be very clear that it depends on what is happening with that boss. It also depends on how much you trust who you're going to escalate it to if we're in that type of a situation. There have been situations in organizations where the HR really has the back of the boss and not the rank and file employee. So I want you to be very aware and work within the reality of your environment and not the utopian theory hope of your environment. Sorry, folks. I've been there. If we presume that Sam has not spoken to me for my last 3 check-ins and I'm genuinely concerned and I have had a decent relationship with her in the past, then this is where framing it positively and not defensively or accusatorily is important. I reach out to her and I would schedule, can I please have a 10 minutes with you? I wouldn't do it through email because I think a lot can get lost in written word. It can sit, the tone that might not be right. They don't reply immediately. You don't know what else is going on. Get a conversation with them scheduled that they do agree to. And then say off the top, I've been concerned because we haven't had our regular check-ins, and I want to know if it's something that I can do or what your thoughts are on it. To help me understand. Help me understand is a nice way as opposed to what are your thoughts, because you're not necessarily the person in charge here. So I would say, help me understand if something's going on or if I'm making too much of it. I would be straightforward and then let them talk. Oh, I wasn't even aware that I missed it. I hadn't counted that they were 3 in a row. You're absolutely right. I'll get back on. Then you could say, is there a way you can let your assistant let me know? Or what would you encourage me to do as to reassure? I mean, I would say be vulnerable in that case if it's a genuine concern. If it's a difficult boss who is just being mean to you, you probably are not going to write their It's not your role, sadly, to write that person's behavior. If there's enough of you that are feeling that kind of a pressure, you can collectively go to the HR person. But again, think about the reality. If it's just you going to HR, word gets back, are you going to get retaliated against? Yeah, probably. Are you going to get sidelined? Yeah, probably. I mean, it depends on your organization. I would love to think that if you have a difficult boss, you have an organization that has your back. Rare, very rare.
And like all of these things you help people with. You help people with situations like this. I know you work with companies all over the world about
Yeah.
stuff like this. So for anyone who is watching, I know you have a book coming out which is going to help with some of these tips, but also being human in the AI world. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that book?
The idea of the book is that it is more than ever essential to
Mm,
power up the way that we are connecting with intention human beings.
mm,
This means you might use ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini to help you craft a memo or a proposal or even an email to another person that would unpack a difficult conversation. But until you are replaced as a robot or a hologram, if you are speaking person to person, in person or virtual, you need to know how to strategically prepare,
mm,
instruct with some words and some voice flow so
mhm.
that you're not rambling all over the place, and some intentionality around your face to connect with the words and the voice. That is taking control of what you can control. It is not making you like someone else. That's why I call the book Amplify You.
Mm.
It is helping you take more control and amplify the voice you already have. So we go step by step. We talk about presentation, we talk about interviews, we talk about difficult conversations. But by applying the strategic preparation techniques, the structure techniques, and the delivery mechanisms that everybody has within them, it is not for someone who is self-identified extrovert and not for someone who isn't. It's for anyone, emerging leader, C-level person working with trying to impact more on investor calls or earnings calls or their board. I work with C-level people. I also work with some of those identified emerging leaders, young employees, because if you want to craft your boat in this fast moving water that is getting more and more dumped with AI fakeness, then I want to help you bolt on oars, bolt on some paddles, maybe even craft a sail and, hey, a motor
Mm.
to help you go and accelerate your ability to make connections and elevate yourself because you're worthy.
Well, this is what these LinkedIn Lives, folks, we're actually going to start doing some LinkedIn Lives on some of the themes in the book and give you a little sneak preview of some of the topics and stuff that we'll be talking about. But
Right.
we do have one other category that has to deal with difficult conversations, and that is people who are business owners like me, and they might have a difficult client. So, do you have any? I have my own tips, but do you have any tips that you could share for people who might have their own business that are watching?
Well, and the difficulty when it doesn't have to be your own business too, because big organizations have to be making sales for their services or their products, and they have customer service and they have client relationships as well. And if a client isn't responsive or a client hasn't followed through on what they've promised to do, and you're trying to seal the deal, you're trying to get more business or whatever that communication is,
Mm.
this one is really sensitive because at stake is your potential business with them. And
Yeah.
especially if you work for a larger organization, that could be affecting your sales activity and your projections and all of the things that you're required to deliver for the organization, not just yourself.
Yeah.
So First of all, a situational awareness is always key. What's your level of relationship with this person? We talk about relationship architecture. How well do you know them? How formal is their style of communications? Your style should match their style or slightly be softer. And
Okay.
the reason I say that is I don't think that any of us are going to bully a client
No.
into compliance. You see how well it's working for Donald Trump. No, just kidding. We're not going to talk about the war.
No.
Your ability to ask questions, I've noticed that this hasn't gone responded to. I've noticed whatever the notice is. I think that's a soft way to start into it. What's blocking? What's the challenge for you? How can I support? How can I help? I would definitely encourage you to lean into questions that aren't accusatory and give them time to share. And I would certainly encourage you to do it over a Zoom at the very least, or a Teams or whatever platform. If you can meet with them in person, depending on how difficult the situation is, proximity always beats in person, beats virtual, virtual beats the phone call beats an email, and off we go. What are I'm curious though, Sam, what are some of the frameworks or some of the approaches that you've used in the past?
I just don't take difficult clients. I'm only joking. No, what I do is
As soon as they're difficult, I just fire them.
yeah.
I don't need that headache.
Exactly. No, no. What I would do is, offer to go on a call and have a chat. Would you like to have a virtual cup of tea? I kind of make it a cup of tea conversation. So, Gina, if you get a cup of tea conversation email from me,
I know I'm in trouble.
no, but I just try and, exactly. I've noticed that, I haven't heard from you. I hope you're okay. I hope everything's all right. Is there anything I can do to help? And that kind of thing. Exactly what you said.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the question and soft approach.
Yeah.
I have emailed you 3 times about that invoice and I haven't heard anything back. You're presuming a lot. You're presuming that whoever is in their procurement department or who they are, that person's okay. I mean, it can take longer than you would like, but you're still going to have that relationship intact.
Yes. Never slam the door behind you. I always say, never shut the door behind you.
I like that.
When you're walking, like whether it's an interview or a client I had before, and maybe, we're finished or whatever, I always keep the door open a little bit so that there's an opportunity to go back someday and have a chat. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the idea that you're trying to hold yourself to your own brand of what's your kindness quotient, what's your approach. Remember, folks, your thought track and your talk track can be 2 different things, and that's okay. In the sense that you can be like, this person is such a rusher, I'm so frustrated with them. Get that out of your head somewhere else.
Yeah.
Call your friend and talk about it. Don't talk about it to another client, obviously.
No.
But don't let it leak in your conversation, because that's where you need to steel yourself, heighten your own curiosity about them, give them not the benefit of the doubt so that you're naive and you're being taken advantage of, but also, again, what's your relationship with them? Have they been forthcoming with you in the past? Do you have a level of bond and trust and rapport? And if you don't, and maybe they're I don't know what the issue is. Maybe the issue is payment. We'll go there for a small business. That's always our issue. Will they please send us please pay this bill?
Yeah.
But you might be communicating to a lower person just starting out, a procurement officer who isn't necessarily the decision maker. So what you might do then is say, Billy Bob, I appreciate that you're doing everything you can. I'm also going to ask Elizabeth I would tell them, I'm also going to ask Elizabeth if there's anything they can do, which is different framing than you've been not responsive to me. What's the word? You've not been responsive to me. I'm going to go tell Elizabeth. I'm kicking it up to your supervisor. Ugh.
Yeah.
That's not going to make anybody happy.
Yeah.
So tread delicately, choose your words with intentionality, and also be aware that you're trying as a provider to a client, you're trying to continue that relationship. So the way that you react and respond and frame your words and hold your face and your body is all part of what is going to continue to build that relationship or might be tearing it down. Another thing I always say is that your communications are never neutral. People are reading from you somewhere on that spectrum of they're with me or I'm not feeling it. It's either going to be helping your relationship or it might be slightly tearing it down a little bit. So be cautious about that. Be aware about that. Be human, but don't come both barrels blazing if you can ask a question and give them some space to respond instead.
Well, I just feel, I know that your book is coming out in September, and I know you're going to have a masterclass at some stage in November. I just feel people need to learn this stuff even more so now, because there's certain leaders out there that I think are influencing people in a negative way and not leading by example that really should be.
100%. Geopolitics is one of the last places that one of the most high profile places that we're seeing the exact opposite of the kind of leadership that we actually know from the research
Works.
is lasting and positive and impactful and legacy building and leads to more productivity that increases trust, which is going to lead to more productivity. And this is what's very frustrating when you are a person in the positive leadership space, to see so many successful people out there, and we don't need to name names, who aren't sharing that same kind of approach or that kind of value. But we also know, as we saw, we can certainly pull from Hungary after Viktor Orban was in for almost 18 years. It seems like a long time at the time, but in the arc of history, he was overthrown by a resounding majority for someone who'd actually been from his party, but was now talking about equality and unity and bringing people together and conversations and not dividing between us and them. And that whole authoritarian style of business leadership is also something that the research is very clear. Command and control leaders versus coaching style of leaders. There's libraries of books and research about why the coaching style of leader is going to have more development, more innovation, more collaboration, more creativity, ultimately a better working environment than the command and control style. It just seems that some places in government that isn't being practiced right now. But I still hold out hope that in the long arc of history, this is going to be more of an aberration than it is a new way of working.
Well, I love your tips, and you've taught me a lot just from even working with you and see, I'm watching your videos myself. Like, I just feel that if anyone that is watching does need a little bit of help with this stuff and really wants to stand out as a leader, I think you can teach them all of these things, like even that resting face. That was something that struck me that you mentioned before. How do you look when you're actually just resting?
I was with a senior leadership team, all men, by the way. I don't just coach for women. In fact, most of my coaching clients currently are men. But I was with a senior leadership team in a medical device company in Switzerland a couple of weeks ago. And their chief operating officer, like most senior leaders, knows the information. But when they were presenting together for a town hall, all the leaders are sitting up on the stage. He was unaware what his resting face was looking like. So he consequently, his team and other people in the organization they thought in particular that he was skeptical of what someone else was saying, or not paying attention, or checked out. And as it just happened, the timing of our engagement that I was with them to that next quarterly town hall was just a couple of days. And then I had a coaching session with him on Monday, and he remarked, I said, what are you doing more intentionally, and what are the responses that you're getting? Are you making any observations? And he says, I was shocked how many people came up to me on the heels of the town hall to say, we thought you were more supportive, more engaged, more involved than ever before. And he said, all I did was sit on the edge of my chair like you taught me, leaned in a little bit, kept looking out to the audience and giving a little bit of a head nod while somebody else was talking, looked over to them. And I said, oh my gosh, you actually put that into practice? Because folks, sometimes I will say these things and an immediate response can be, that's theatrical, that's performative, I don't want to do that, that's not who I am. And yet, if in your heart you want to look more cohesive, or you want to look more supportive or collaborative, don't just think it in your heart, because we can't see your heart. We can only see what you evoke through the choices that you make to power up your body language, to send that message of support, interest, cohesion. And it takes effort, but it's worth it, as he observed and expressed to me.
Yeah, this was great, Gina. If anyone is interested in pre-ordering Gina's new book, it's on ginalondon.com, it's on Amazon, it's on all the usual places you would find it. But definitely, if you want to pre-order, go to ginalondon.com and you'll see the buttons there. But definitely, we're going to give you some little insights to what's in store at our next LinkedIn Live. But in the meantime, Gina, is there anything you want to add before we wrap up?
Yes, I'm looking forward to the book coming out. It's going to be out in September. Amplify You, how to better connect, how to power up your connections in the age of AI. And the idea here again, folks, is you don't change you when you change what you do. And that's important to remember. This is about amplifying the you that you are. And it's not just enough to say, oh, Sam's a natural, Gina's a natural. This is deliberate effort that takes time to be embedded, but it's just like any muscle that you exercise. If you've got a personal trainer that helps you get those muscles back in alignment, you're going to be more effective. And that, not because I have all the answers. I'm not the first person to share some of these techniques. I hope that I'm bringing you everything all together in one, so you can take it from your own mindset, the way you speak to yourself, the way you speak to others, the way you look with your body language, the way that you can be more show-upable with some of the choices you can make, and then the applications for it, like we've been discussing. But Amplify You is the name of the book. It's Waterstones, it's Barnes and Nobles, it's all the Amazons.uk.ie.com, wherever you can apply online. They'll be in bookstores coming up in September, but right now pre-orders are open. And I'm really looking forward to sharing all of this in one collection for you.
Can't wait. Looking forward to it. Thank you, Gina London, and we shall talk later. And definitely, if you want to connect on LinkedIn, or if you want to contact Gina, go to ginalondon.com. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Deirdre and Greg, as well, for your comments.